Once you stop trying to hold on to it, you never lose it again. There is a strange and gentle truth hiding inside every tight fist. And today, we are going to open that fist together and see what has been waiting inside it all along. The premise comes from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 11, verse 24, where it is written, "Therefore I say unto you, what things soever ye desire, when ye pray, believe that ye receive them, and ye shall have them." Notice the verse does not say, chase them, or grip them, or beg for them again and again. It says, believe you already have received, and let that quiet belief be the whole transaction, because the moment you stop clawing at a thing and simply trust that it is already yours, something in the universe exhales alongside you and lets it stay. Say it with me. I release my grip, and the good stays near me. I trust what is already mine without chasing it. I rest instead of reaching, and I keep it because I finally let it go. Again, I release my grip, and the good stays near me. I trust what is already mine without chasing it. I rest instead of reaching, and I keep it because I finally let it go. If this kind of teaching steadies something in you, stay close and subscribe, so tomorrow's teaching finds you the same way this one did. Go ahead and type the words "I'm ready" in the comments right now, so you carry that decision with you into the 6 laws we are about to walk through together. The first law is this: the tighter the grip, the faster the thing slips. Think of holding water cupped in your 2 hands. The moment you squeeze your fingers together in fear of losing a single drop, that is the exact moment it runs out between your knuckles. But when you hold your palms open and relaxed, the water simply rests there, calm, undisturbed. This was something Abdullah taught with quiet insistence, that the state you are anxious about is the state you have not yet accepted as already yours. Anxiety is the proof of doubt, and doubt is a hand clenched too hard around a thing it does not yet believe it owns. Think about sleep. The nights you try hardest to fall asleep are the nights sleep runs furthest from you. But the night you stop trying and simply let your body rest, sleep arrives on its own. Think about a phone call you are waiting for. The more you stare at the screen, the longer the silence feels. But the moment you set the phone down and go live your evening, the call so often comes. This is not superstition. It is the shape of how attention and trust actually work. The anxious grip broadcasts, "I do not have this," while the open, relaxed hand broadcasts, "I already have this," and there is nothing to fear. So today, notice one thing in your life you have been clutching: a relationship, a paycheck, an answer, and simply loosen your grip on it in your mind, not because you do not care, but because you trust it more than your fear does. So speak this decree with me: I open my hand, and I do not lose what is truly mine. Again, I open my hand, and I do not lose what is truly mine. The second law is this: wanting is not the same as assuming, and Abdullah drew a sharp line between the two. Wanting keeps you on the outside of the door forever knocking, while assuming walks you through the door and lets you sit down at the table as if you already belong there. Think of a farmer who plants a seed. If he plants it and then digs it up every single morning to check whether it has grown yet, he destroys the very thing he is trying to grow. The seed needs darkness, patience, and to be left alone in trust. In the same way, when you assume a wish already fulfilled, you plant it, and then you walk away from the soil. You stop digging it up with worried questions like, has it happened yet? Why hasn't it happened yet? What if it never happens? Each of those questions is a shovel tearing at the root. Abdullah taught that the secret of assumption is to feel the wish as already real, to feel the relief of the answered prayer, rather than the tension of the unanswered one. Picture a woman named Miriam, who wanted a letter of reconciliation from her estranged sister. The wanting version of Miriam checks the mailbox 3 times a day, rehearses the argument again in her mind every night, feels her stomach tighten every time the phone buzzes, and it is not her sister. She is living entirely outside the door, still knocking, still begging an answer to arrive. But one evening, Miriam decides to try something different. She sits quietly and imagines the warmth of her sister's voice, already forgiving her. She feels the specific relief in her chest, as though the call already happened. She even imagines what she would say back. "Thank you for calling." And then, having felt it fully, she stands up and goes to make dinner. She does not check the phone again that night. She has assumed the ending and then let it be. This is the whole shift, wanting lives in the future tense, always reaching, always incomplete, while assuming lives in the present tense, already home, already at peace. Think also of someone wanting a job offer. The wanting version rehearses the rejection speech, refreshes the email every 10 minutes, tightens with every hour of silence. The assuming version already feels the quiet gratitude of having the position, already imagines walking into that office, already feels the relief settle into the shoulders, and strangely, it is that second person who so often receives the call, because they have stopped begging at the door and started living as though they are already inside the house. Notice, too, that assumption is not pretending or forcing a smile over doubt. It is simply choosing which feeling you allow to be the loudest voice in the room. Wanting shouts, "I do not have this yet," while assuming whispers calmly, "This is already so." And a calm whisper held steadily will always outlast a loud, anxious shout. So practice this today. Take one desire you have been merely wanting, and for just 2 minutes, feel what it would feel like if it were already true. Not straining, just resting in the feeling. Let your body believe it, even before your circumstances catch up. So speak this decree with me. I assume the feeling of the answered wish, and I stop knocking at closed doors. Again, I assume the feeling of the answered wish, and I stop knocking at closed doors. The third law is this, and it may be the deepest thing Abdullah ever pointed toward. Live in the end, and then forget it. This sounds almost like a contradiction. How can you live in something and also forget it? But think of it this way. When you truly believe a thing is finished, you stop mentioning it. You stop checking on it. You stop needing to talk about it constantly, because it is simply true, and true things do not need constant defending. Think about how you treat the fact that the sun will rise tomorrow. You do not lie awake anxiously affirming it. You do not check the sky every hour for reassurance. You simply know it and you sleep. That is what living in the end and releasing it looks like. Abdullah would often speak of ending the day as though a specific request had already been granted. Then, instead of dwelling on it further, he would simply let the day close and let sleep take him. No anxious rehearsing, no repeated pleading, because to repeat a plea is to confess you do not yet believe it is done. Picture a young man who wants to mend a friendship that broke apart in anger. Every night he replays the argument, drafts the apology text a dozen times, deletes it, rewrites it, imagines every possible cold reply. By morning he is exhausted, and the friendship feels further away than the night before. Now picture that same young man choosing a different way. One evening he sits quietly, feels for a few breaths what it would feel like if the friendship were already warm again, feels the ease of laughing with that friend the way they used to, and then he closes his eyes and lets the feeling go. He does not draft the text that night. He does not rehearse the outcome. He simply sleeps. That release is not carelessness. It is the deepest form of trust there is. Think of a woman praying for healing in someone she loves. If every hour she says out loud, Please let them be healed. Please let them be healed. She is actually reinforcing the belief that they are still sick. But if she can, even once, quiet her heart enough to feel the relief of them already whole, and then release that feeling like a stone dropped gently into a still pond, watching the ripples move outward on their own, she has done the deeper work. The ripples do not need her permission to keep moving. They will move whether she watches or not. Notice, too, how a candle left burning on a windowsill does not strain to light the whole night. It simply stays lit, steady, unbothered, while the household sleeps in peace around it. That is the posture Abdullah pointed toward. A quiet, steady glow of assumption, not a frantic flame flickering with every worried breath. This is why so many people who pray anxiously for years remain stuck, not because their desire was wrong, but because they kept digging the seed back up every single day to check on it, while the ones who release quickly and trust completely so often see the answer arrive almost before they expected it. The difference is never the size of the desire. It is only ever the tightness of the hand around it. So tonight, before you close your eyes, choose one thing you desire, feel it as already resolved for just a few breaths, and then let it go completely. Do not mention it again tonight. Let the silence itself be your faith. Let sleep itself become your amen. So speak this decree with me. I live in the ending I desire, and then I let it rest in peace. Again, I live in the ending I desire, and then I let it rest in peace. The fourth law is this: the how is not your job. The feeling is. Abdullah taught that most people fail not because their desire was too big, but because they insisted on solving the mechanics of it themselves, trying to map every step of how the desire would arrive, and in doing so they strangled their own faith with logistics. This is one of the hardest laws to actually live, because the mind is a planner by nature. It wants blueprints. It wants a schedule. It wants to know which door opens first and which comes second, and who will say yes and who will say no. But Abdullah taught that the moment you try to engineer the exact mechanism of your own miracle, you have quietly stepped out of faith and back into fear, wearing the costume of preparation. Think of mailing a letter. Once you drop it into the mailbox, you do not run alongside the mail truck making sure it takes the correct route. You do not personally track every hand that touches that envelope on its journey across the country. You trust the system enough to walk away and go live your day, and days later, without you supervising a single mile of the road, the letter arrives exactly where it needed to go. This is what it means to release the how. Your only work is to generate the true feeling of the wish fulfilled, and then to trust the unseen mechanism of life to arrange the actual roads and doors and timing needed to bring it to you. Let me give you a fuller picture of this. Imagine a man named Samuel who has been out of work for several months. Every night he lies awake trying to calculate exactly how the next job will come to him. Should he call his old manager? Should he apply to 15 more places tomorrow? Should he move to a new city? His mind spins through 100 possible mechanisms, and the more he spins, the more exhausted and discouraged he becomes, because none of the paths he imagines feel certain. One evening, almost by accident, he stops the spinning. He simply closes his eyes and feels, just for a few minutes, what it would feel like to already be working again. The relief of it, the pride of coming home tired in a good way, the simple comfort of an ordinary paycheck landing in his account. He does not plan which company. He does not decide which manager calls him first. He only holds the feeling, and then he goes to sleep. Weeks later, the job that finds him is not one he planned for at all. It comes through a conversation he almost did not have, at a gathering he almost did not attend. This is the pattern Abdullah pointed to again and again. The feeling draws the path. but the path itself is drawn by something wiser than the anxious, calculating mind. Your task was never to draw the map. Your task was only to know the destination in your bones. Think of someone wanting a new home. If they spend all their energy worrying about which specific real estate agent, which specific bank loan, which specific neighbor will need to move out first, they have taken over a job that was never theirs to do. They have hired themselves as the architect of a building only life itself knows how to construct. But if instead they simply feel the warmth of already living there, the sound of their own footsteps on those specific floors, the relief of already being settled, and then release the details to unfold however they need to unfold, doors open in ways the mind could never have planned on its own. Sometimes the very neighbor they worried about becomes the one who tells them the house is for sale before it is even listed. This is not luck. This is what happens when the feeling is trusted more than the forecasting. This is the same wisdom found in the book of Proverbs, chapter 3, verses 5 and 6, where it is written, "Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths." Notice it does not say, figure out your own paths. It does not say, calculate every turn before you take a single step. It says, lean not on your own understanding. Let something wiser than your anxious, calculating mind direct the actual roads. Your part is the feeling. The direction is not your burden to carry. So many people exhaust themselves trying to carry both, the feeling and the forecasting, and they wonder why they feel so tired, even when nothing has gone wrong yet. The tiredness is not a sign of a hard journey. It is a sign of carrying a job that was never assigned to you. Think of a garden again for a moment. The gardener plants the seed, waters it, gives it sunlight, and then steps back. The gardener does not stand over the soil, trying to personally direct which cells divide first, which root grows left, and which grows right. The gardener trusts the seed to know its own growth far better than any hand ever could. You are the gardener of your own desires. In exactly this way, your feeling is the water and the sunlight, but the actual unfolding, the actual timing, the actual specific roads that bring the harvest to your door, that belongs to a wisdom far older and far steadier than your worried mind could ever be. So today, whatever you are trying to force into a specific shape or timeline, a relationship you keep trying to script, a career move you keep trying to plan down to the smallest detail, a healing you keep trying to schedule on your own calendar, hand the how back over, and only keep the feeling for yourself. Let your only assignment be the quiet, steady feeling of the thing already being true, and let the roads arrange themselves the way they always have. So speak this decree with me. I keep the feeling and I release the how to arrange itself. Again, I keep the feeling and I release the how to arrange itself. The fifth law is this: what is truly yours never needed gripping in the first place. Think about your own name. You do not clutch your name in fear that someone will steal it while you sleep. You do not lie awake anxiously affirming that you are still you, because it is simply, effortlessly true. And this is the deepest secret hidden inside the title of everything we are exploring today. Once you stop trying to hold on to it, you never lose it again, because the very act of desperate holding is proof that some part of you still believes the thing is separate from you, still believes it could slip away. But the things that are truly, deeply yours rest in you, the way breath rests in your lungs. You do not grip your next breath in terror that it will not come. You simply breathe, and it comes. Abdullah taught that when a state becomes natural to you, when it becomes as familiar and unquestioned as your own name or your own breath, it stops requiring effort altogether. And this is worth sitting with slowly, because most people spend their whole lives working hard at holding on to things that were never truly theirs, while ignoring the things that already belong to them so completely they forget to even notice. Think about your own shadow. You never once in your life have chased your shadow down the street, begging it to stay close to you. You never wake up worried that it wandered off in the night. It simply follows you effortlessly, because it is yours, not because you earned it or fought for it, but because it was never separate from you to begin with. That is what Abdullah meant when he spoke of a state you have truly accepted. It stops needing your attention. It just moves with you like your own shadow moves with you, quietly, patiently, without asking permission. Think now of two kinds of people who own a home. One bought the house outright. The deed is filed away somewhere in a drawer, and they almost never think about it. They walk through their kitchen barefoot in the morning, without once wondering if today is the day it gets taken from them. But the other is renting month to month, uncertain if the lease will be renewed. And that person checks the mailbox nervously, reads every notice twice, flinches at unfamiliar knocks on the door. Notice both people are living in the very same house, but only one of them is living there in peace. The difference was never the house itself. The difference was the grip. One person owned it in their bones and stopped needing to prove it. The other still felt like a guest, and so lived like one. Anxious, watchful, never settled. This is exactly the difference Abdullah pointed to when he spoke of truly assuming a state, rather than merely wishing for it. The wishing renter checks the mailbox of life every single day, while the one who has assumed ownership simply lives there. Think of someone who speaks their mother tongue versus someone learning a new language. The native speaker never searches for words in the middle of a sentence, never grips at grammar, never rehearses what they are about to say before they say it. The words simply arrive because the language lives inside them without effort. But the student of a new language holds every sentence so tightly, translating in their head, afraid of getting it wrong, exhausted by the mere act of speaking. And here is the strange part. The harder the student grips at fluency, the more stiff and broken their sentences sound. But the moment they finally relax, stop translating, stop gripping, and simply let the words come the way a native speaker lets them come, that is the very moment fluency begins to actually appear. This is precisely what Abdullah taught about any desire. At first you grip it like a foreign phrase you are terrified of mispronouncing. But the goal is to let the wish become as natural to you as your first language, spoken without translation, without strain, without fear. Now let us return to two people in a relationship, because love shows this law more clearly than almost anything else in ordinary life. Picture a woman named Sarah who checks her partner Michael's phone, who counts the minutes before he replies to a text, who quietly panics every time he seems a little distant at dinner. She loves him, but her love has become a grip, a fist closed so tightly around him that he begins to feel smothered rather than adored. Now picture another version of Sarah, one who has quietly settled into the assured knowing that she is loved, who does not need constant proof, who can sit across the table from Michael in comfortable silence without translating every glance into fear. And strangely, it is this second Sarah that Michael cannot imagine living without, because her peace itself becomes magnetic. Her steadiness becomes the very thing that draws him closer. Security draws things near. Desperation pushes them away. This is not cruelty built into the universe. It is simply the shape of how energy moves. Calm, open trust pulls things toward you, the way gravity pulls a stone toward the earth. Tight, fearful grasping pushes things away, the way two magnets turned the wrong direction repel each other, no matter how hard you press them together. Think of a person learning to ride a bicycle for the first time. At the very beginning, they grip the handlebars so tightly their knuckles turn white. They wobble violently because the fear itself is what throws off their balance. The bicycle is not unstable, the grip is unstable, but the moment their shoulders drop and their hands loosen, and they simply trust the motion of pedaling forward, they suddenly glide, smooth and light and almost weightless. Nothing about the bicycle changed, only the grip changed. And this is the whole secret hiding underneath this fifth law. The thing you are afraid of losing was never the problem. Your fear itself, your grip itself, was the only obstacle standing between you and the calm possession of what was already yours. So ask yourself honestly today, in what area of your life am I white-knuckling the handlebars instead of trusting the ride? Is it a relationship? Is it a paycheck? Is it your own health? Is it a dream you have been chasing so hard you have forgotten to simply live inside it? Wherever you find that tight grip, loosen it gently today. Not because you stopped caring, but because you finally trust it more than your fear does. So speak this decree with me. I rest in what is mine, the way I rest in my own breath. Again, I rest in what is mine, the way I rest in my own breath. The sixth law is this, and it gathers every law before it into one final, quiet way of living. Patience is not passive waiting. Patience is active trusting, and this is the hardest law to practice, because everything in the modern world trains you to check, to refresh, to measure, to compare, to demand instant visible proof that your desire is on its way. But Abdullah lived and taught in a completely different rhythm, a rhythm closer to the farmer than the customer, closer to the tide than the clock, closer to the orchard than the vending machine that spits out its answer the second you press a button. Think about the moon. The moon does not anxiously rush to become full. It simply continues its steady, quiet arc across the sky, trusting its own nature completely. And one night, without announcement, without forcing, it is simply full. This is what your desires are doing in the unseen, moving through their own necessary arc. And your only work, the only work Abdullah ever really asked of anyone, was to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and then to live your ordinary days with that calm certainty quietly humming underneath everything you do, not obsessing, not checking, not measuring your worthiness by how visible the progress seems. Think about the tide. No wave has ever rushed the shore out of panic that it might not arrive. The ocean simply moves according to a rhythm older than worry itself, and the shore is always met. Think about an orchard in late summer. The farmer does not stand under the tree yelling at the branches to hurry. He waters, he tends the soil, he walks away and lives the rest of his day, and the apples ripen on a schedule that has nothing to do with his impatience. Now think of an everyday moment nearly everyone knows, a student waiting for exam results. One version of that student refreshes the results page 40 times an hour, stomach in knots, unable to eat, unable to sleep, dragging the anxiety into every conversation with friends and family, until the waiting itself becomes a kind of small private suffering that colors every hour of the day. But another version of that same student, after having done the honest work of studying, chooses to hand the outcome over, goes and meets a friend for coffee, laughs at something silly, sleeps peacefully that night, not because they stopped caring, but because they trusted the work was done and the result would arrive in its own time either way. And it is almost always this second student who describes the waiting period afterward as calm, even pleasant, while the first describes it as agony. Notice something important here. The exam result was identical in both cases. The only difference was whether the days in between were lived in gripping or in trust. This is the entire secret, hiding inside patience. It does not change what is coming nearly as much as it changes what it costs you to get there. Think of someone recovering from a difficult season, a broken heart, a lost job, a long illness, the version of them that survives by constantly asking, why hasn't this changed yet? Why am I still here? Why is it taking so long? Remains chained to the very pain they are trying to escape. Every hour becomes a courtroom where they cross-examine their own healing and find it guilty of being too slow. But the version of them that can, even in the hard middle of it, quietly assume the feeling of being whole again, of laughing easily again, of walking lighter again, and then simply keep living, keep working, keep loving the people in front of them, without constantly measuring the timeline against some invisible stopwatch. That is the version who so often looks back later and realizes the change happened so gradually and so naturally that they cannot even pinpoint the exact day it shifted, because it was never going to arrive through gripping. It was only ever going to arrive through release. This is echoed beautifully in the book of Hebrews, chapter 11, verse 1. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Notice the wording again. Substance. Not someday, not maybe. Substance. Faith itself is described as the material, the actual stuff a thing is made of, before it has even become visible to the eye. This means your calm trust today is not a placeholder, while you wait for the real thing to show up later. Your calm trust today already is the real thing, quietly forming itself into visible shape in its own perfect timing, the way frost forms on a window overnight, without anyone watching it happen stroke by stroke. Think of a mother waiting for a letter from a son far from home. If she spends every day pacing at the window, staring down the road, straightening the curtain, checking the mailbox 3 times before noon, her days become heavy, anxious, hollowed out by waiting. The whole shape of her life bends around a letter that has not even arrived yet. But if she trusts the letter is already written, already on its way, and goes on tending her garden, laughing with her neighbors, kneading bread, living her days fully, she is not one bit less likely to receive that letter. She is simply no longer suffering in the meantime. And this, more than anything else, is the true gift hidden inside. Letting go. It does not only bring the thing back to you faster or more reliably, it gives you back your peace while you wait. It gives you back your days, your sleep, your laughter, your presence with the people who need you right now in this very hour. Think also of someone waiting for a phone call about a diagnosis, or a decision from a landlord about an apartment, or word from a friend after a hard conversation. In every single one of these ordinary human moments, the same fork in the road appears. Grip the phone and suffer twice, once in the imagination and once if it ever really happens. Or release the grip, trust the arc, and only ever have to face the moment once, if it comes at all. So let this be the final practice, woven through everything we have walked through today. Whatever you have been white-knuckling, whatever result you have been refreshing 40 times an hour, whatever letter you have been anxiously watching for at the window, whatever tree you have been standing under yelling at to hurry, set it down today, not in defeat, but in the quiet confidence of someone who finally understands that release is not losing. Release is the doorway through which keeping actually happens. So speak this decree with me. I trust the timing I cannot see, and I live fully while I wait. Again, I trust the timing I cannot see, and I live fully while I wait. Here is the whole picture. The tighter the grip, the faster it slips. So we open the hand. Wanting keeps you outside the door, but assuming sets you at the table. So we assume the feeling first. Living in the end means planting the seed and walking away from it. So we release quickly and completely. The how is never our job. So we hand back the logistics and keep only the feeling. What is truly ours never needed gripping in the first place. So we rest the way we rest in our own breath, and patience is not passive but an active, quiet trust. So we live fully while the unseen arc completes itself in its own perfect time. Say it with me one final time. I release my grip, and the good stays near me. I trust what is already mine without chasing it. I rest instead of reaching, and I keep it because I finally let it go. And so we return to where we began. Once you stop trying to hold on to it, you never lose it again. Not because the universe rewards forgetting, but because release itself is the proof that you finally believed it was already yours.